Comedian Abi Roberts is with me in the studio tonight to discuss why comedy must push back to save free speech. And Abi Roberts, you have sympathy for these folk. I know, well, maybe empathy, actually, because you've gone through something similar as a comedian who, by the way, one of my favourites, because you're not prepared to be censored.
No, I will say the comedian's job is to be funny, make people laugh, to release tension in the room. You know, when you go into a big club, everyone's a bit like this in the audience. Then you come out, you do your first joke. It's like the tradition, you know, in the first, 5 seconds, get the laugh. And you can feel everyone's shoulders relaxing. That's the job of a comedian. A comedian does not want to be giving a sermon. You do not want to turn up to a club and go, hello, everybody, I'm Abi Roberts, and today we're going to be talking about the 652,000 million genders, and also, please behave yourself. You do not want that. You want, you know, people have had a hard day at work, they're stressed about stuff, they do not want to be thinking really about anything other than laughter, and you certainly don't want other comedians, which is happening now, we'll get onto, who are kind of looking over your shoulder to see what you're doing. That is very eerie. That has never happened before.
In a sort of policing type
way. Absolutely. I mean, someone said to me the other day, it's actually on here, on Saturday night, they said, oh yeah, well, you know, when you do stuff, it's like, you know, you can talk about your own lived experience. And I was like, well, in which case I'd have to be health secretary to take the piss out of Matt Hancock, if that's the way the logic is going, you know. So no, it's like, to me, comedy is the freest, should be the freest thing. In fact, it's the one thing, I think it's very interesting that a few comedians like myself are kind of talking out more, because we feel that we have to really defend free speech as well as comedy.
Well, what I love, and I absolutely praise you for doing that, and obviously there are some comedians here on GBNews, led by obviously the brilliant Andrew Doyle, who do that too on Free Speech Nation. But what I'm also liking, Abi, is that Netflix, obviously a powerful broadcaster, in this case, hasn't given in to the cancel culture mob. And I think part of that is because Dave Chappelle is uncancelable. He doesn't need Netflix. This is one of the most famous comedians in the world. He can go on his own platform. So in some ways, it's really important when these very, very famous comedians, Ricky Gervais is another one, hold firm.
Exactly.
Don't apologise.
Do not apologise. And you know what? Sometimes, it was the other day, I was listening to a podcast, you know, and Dave Chappelle, well done Netflix, I have to say first, for saying no. He's doing his job, you know, he's punching up, punching down, punching sideways, and most importantly, he's going for the punchlines. That's what we have to know about Dave Chappelle. But also, you know, I was listening to a podcast, and there was this comedian. It was like a comedian's podcast, and there was this comedian defending his routine. The host was kind of grilling him, going, well, don't you think that was a bit offensive? And this guy, who's a really good comedian, was going, and I thought, no, say to him, I own it. You have to own your jokes. You're a comedian. You're not a social worker.
Well, you know? Maybe I've got this wrong, right? Maybe I've got this wrong. But I've always believed that comedy was meant to cause offence.
Yeah, well, I mean, Lenny Bruce. Look at the great American comics. Lenny Bruce, Chris Rock, Sam Kinison. All people, by the way, who, when, you know, you saw them live, it was like, oh, my God. You know, Sam Kinison dripping with sweat with a bandana on his head, shouting into a microphone. You want that element of, like, a little bit sort of, like, a bit naughty, like, oh, I'm here, and it's like a religious experience, you know. And if you're, to be honest with you, if you're offended, leave.
Well, I'm
Walk
sorry,
out.
Abi, can you imagine how many times today Joan Rivers would be cancelled?
Oh,
and she's one of our great female comics, and she simply would not be allowed to do what she did in today's climate. And that brings me on to the Billy Connolly situation. And how disturbing to think one of our greats, one of our absolute greats, probably would have been cancelled because, of course, his his comedy poked at religion. Absolutely,
he did. You know, he's joked about Islam, he's joked about Catholicism, joked about everything. Everything is on the table for Billy Connolly. But you know, the great thing about Connolly and Chappelle is that when they're doing stuff, and you can watch this with both of them, they say something and then they kind of go. There's a little look in the eye where they're basically saying, am I really saying what I think? Am I maybe not? Who knows? That's where the that really nice sweet spot is, you know? And great comics have it, all of them.
No, you're completely right. Well, look, we've got to keep fighting this fight.
We do.
And thank goodness in this case Netflix hasn't given in, because obviously there's a lot of their staff in California who are tearing their hair out over this. So I hope they stand firm. They need to stand firm.
They do.
And we need to ignore the people trying to cancel comedians on a daily basis, because otherwise comedy is going to become left-wing, woke, boring and lame. You know, a bit like watching the BBC, Abby?
Yeah, exactly, like watching the BBC. Exactly. Like boring, like you don't want comedy to be beige. You want people to kind of go, oh, I can't believe they said that, or, you know, so, you know, we have to save comedy.
Yeah.
Once comedy goes, we're in serious trouble.